Hey everyone, welcome to the Way of Soul Remembering podcast with Tom Llewellyn, where we give people a space to authentically share their spiritual journey and inspire with what they have learned. I'm really happy to have Ivet Hall with us today, who's a channel, an artist, and is also supporting other people that are on their journey into channeling, who have maybe having interesting spiritual experiences, potentially contacts with higher beings, with other beings, and we're going to explore some of this on the show. So I'm really looking forward to going into this. Um, so what I like to do first on all of our podcast interviews is just to very much bring it into the present moment by just asking if you've had any recent experiences, dream experiences, or journeys of the spirit, or just how do you relate to that? Do you record your dreams? How do you kind of work with things on that level?
Yeah, thank you for inviting me to this podcast. I'm very happy that I can share today. And so, to answer your question, like it depends on what is going on in my life. Sometimes I have periods of time when I don't really focus on what I see in the dreams, what it offers to me. Usually, for example, just it depends on the type of the dreams. Like if they are just in some way reflecting my energy to process my everyday life, I just look at it. I see the reflection that yeah, this is maybe showing me that I should maybe do more inner work or eat healthier. That can be different aspects showing to me. So just reminders, that I need to take care of myself more. And then also it depends on like if I want to change something or have more of experiences, then I move my attention there and I make it priority. And then, for example, when I do something like that, I can focus on it for several days in a row and have a certain goal. And then I would be writing also my experiences down and processing it into more depth. Usually, I don't write them because sometimes I have like a even when I'm very aligned with myself, dreams can be very like overwhelming, too much information and too much randomness is not always so important to me. It's similar like with the life, like you don't write a diary about everything that happens to you, during the day. So I only write something that is more important for me, connected specifically with the certain beings that I connect and so on. So other stuff I kind of like just let go, let pass. And when I am working really on some more journeys, then I would process it more, maybe write down even like what blockages I experienced during that experience that I would like to experience more. So I process them. I even talk with the beings about them. And usually, what helps me even more is not just writing it down and journaling about it, but even when I channel back the responses from either one being that I connect specifically for that specific interactions. She would offer me some kind of reflection, but even just the energy of it, I feel that it's removing or shifting my energy. So next night I can have again like a further, on that road that I want to achieve experience, and I work through that way. So that is something that I also did before several times.
That's wonderful. No, thank you so much for sharing that. It would be lovely to hear in the course of the interview, just maybe, or even now, if you got any memories of a particular dream experience, just to make it quite visual, to begin to engage our imagination for the people listening to this podcast. Just any example
Yeah,
of
okay.
an experience where a being helped you to shift something energetically, even within the
Yeah.
dream, or told you about a blockage. If you can just remember one that seems resonant, that might just help to get us all more
Yes,
into the imaginal.
there is one definitely that I also remember because it's certain like teaching there for me to, that has shifted me, that as you are asking about it. So But this wasn't that recent. It was a few years ago, and it also is relating to the being that we will be talking about. And my connection with her is of a romantic nature, and she's extraterrestrial of like from the higher dimensional plane. And I had a lot of experiences with her, and at some point, I started to struggle with that connection to feel it more, and a lot of different things. So, like when you are trying to work on yourself in different ways and on that connection, you can find sometimes yourself blocked in some way. So you need to investigate why. And so I had this experience that I was in like I had a lot of journeys or astral experiences in or I don't know if you want to call it lucid dreaming, but for me it's OBE experiences in a school, in my primary school, but it always seems slightly different. But I was in that area, and sometimes it shifts, how like when I go through certain doors and stuff like that. So I was in the school, and I went outside into like in the middle of the school, like at the buildings where like grass field, and I went out, and there were a lot of other beings and people, and I approached a few of them. Like I sensed like there were like twins there, female twins, and I wanted to ask them like, I want to connect with this being. I want to have more astral connection with this being. But I just cannot let her into the space with me. How can I do this? Like, what's wrong, or if they have something to offer me? And when I approached them, I felt that they were not two females and twins, but one of them was male, and they seemed very similar, and realized that I actually picked that on the twin flame energy, that they have been couple in that experience. And funny was that when I approached them, I was in certain way needy, and my energy as I approached them just completely pushed them away. It was almost like a wind that they just kind of like fell on the grass. And so I was like, okay, I'm too needy, too pushy, my energy outside. So I kind of like calm down, get into the present moment, and then I asked them the question, and the male one asked back to me like why I want to connect with her, why I want to meet her. And it was so strange, like in this realm, this is what I experienced many times as well, is that access to subconsciousness is much easier than, I was asking myself the same question many times, or different questions in my normal life. But when I am in that space, like answers and feelings like come up so easily outside, and I immediately started to realize that I was working on a belief that I shouldn't be needy, I should suppress my need and stuff like that, and I'm not manifesting because I kind of like block it in a certain way. And what I realized was that I have to own the desire in the purest way. And when I realized it, like really, and kind of like expanded the desire, but it's not desire that is needy, but it's a very like loving, it's I don't know how to describe it. And then when I was processing like this, one of them, and also funny was that when I was processing, like many different beings just came there and sit around me and create a circle, and they were just watching my process. And then one of them showed like with a finger to the door. To some other door, and I was like, this meant like she would be coming in, and I was like, is she coming? And so I saw her. She was coming. She went around the circle of the people and sat down to the twins, the female of those twins, and she sat down, and immediately, like I panicked and was thrown away. So, but it was just a great experience, that it showed me that some spiritual teachings are not necessary what we really should believe in and follow, and really find the proper resonance of like for example, with the desire, like when it's pure and coming from the soul, that is basically what is guiding me through manifesting what I'm here to manifest, and to experience. And when I am trying to disconnect from the desire, it's like I am disconnecting from manifesting it as well and allowing it to come to me. So
Wow, that's no, thank you so much for sharing that beautiful experience. And I resonate with that. I had a guide being once come through to me in a similar kind of experience. And it wasn't as a long experience as what you're sharing, but there's something in it that felt similar. In that at the time I was doing so much relaxation exercises because I found it so um, useful for cultivating out of body experiences. Lots of time just lying down in really deep states of relaxation, and it was good. Those times were beautiful. It helped bring a lot of rejuvenation and healing into my body, and it was really useful for me in terms of understanding how to help others have those sort of similar experiences. But one time this guide came through to me, and she just said something really simple, like she said, "Tom, it's not just about relaxing. It's also about having passion."
mhm,
Having passion,
mhm. That's
because sometimes,
right.
we can feel like we need to become so just in that receptive state of contemplation and deep energy work. And actually, sometimes what the spirits are most pleased about is when they witness you making significant changes in your physical life that demonstrate that you're really,
Yeah.
you're bringing your soul energy through. I've had that quite a lot recently. Beings come through to me just very, very pleased about certain things that I've been doing in my life. So that's sort of always important to remember that. And there's another really brief story that I'll just bring in to do with Robert Monroe, one of the pioneers of OBEs in the West. And he had a similar experience. He wasn't having many out of body experiences at all during a certain phase of his life. And he had one, and a being came through to him and said to him something like, said, "Mr. Monroe, you're doing fantastic. You're doing so amazing." And he said, "But I'm not having these experiences. It's so strange." And they're like, "Yeah, we know you're not having these experiences, but you've made really significant changes in your physical life, and we're really pleased."
Yeah.
So anyway,
Yes,
so
yes.
but there is something important about what you're touching on there about desire and making sure that we allow ourselves to have passion and soul energy in our lives. So it's really beautiful that you touch upon that. One thing that I'd love to do is to sort of just really find out a bit more about you, Yvette, and share that with listeners, because I can tell you've got so much to offer and such a rich kind of experience. I'm just really curious. I mean, how did your journey into spirituality begin? I mean, what called you or motivated you to begin to turn inwards and develop yourself? I mean, was it something that came naturally? Was it within your community, family, or circle of friends? I mean, how did this all kind of begin for you?
Yeah, I would definitely say that it was more natural than guidance from the external world. That I always had some kind of, like inner desire to search for something that I didn't know what I was searching for, but I always had some drive, to reach for my potentials because I saw that I had, for example, artistic talent from very early age, and I was talented in many different ways, like with the building stuff and anything manual, but also in mathematics and stuff like that. So I was always feeling like I almost can do anything what I want to achieve. Just putting my mind and work into it, then and time practice, then I can manifest it. And so uh, of course, like in a spiritual sense, I was also very interested in esoteric stuff, and interesting that later in my life I discovered, for example, that we had this certain strange books, let's say, at home. My mom, I don't know why, but maybe it was something that I told her, and she gave me a book that was from Eric von Däniken about like ancient gods that came to Earth eons ago, and So that was, for example, the first book she gave me, that I really, enjoyed. And there were some other later I found that, there were a lot of things about like biofields, activating energies and even affirmations, part of subconsciousness and subconscious mind and stuff like that. And um, it's strange, but I never really saw behavior from her that would show me that she read them and practice something from them. So it's funny, but still I think I had some ground, like for example in a way how I think about like our connection with the nature, because my grandma and also my mom were herbalists, or my grandma were more herbalists, or because she was also going into like on the meadows and picking up herbs, and I went sometimes with her. With my mom, she has a garden, so she is growing herbs there that she needs like specific ones. So I know, I would say very little about herbs and specific herbs. And for example, each time when I was sick, the first thing was that I received herbal teas and stuff like that. So more of alternative stuff than classic medicine. So I think this definitely influenced how I think. But for example, I have sisters, so she was brought up in the same family, and she's completely different. So I definitely think it was also my nature and why I came here. What I wanted to experience during this life that was driving me into discovering things. Like when we got internet first time, I'm not sure how old I was, maybe 15 or so, and like very soon I found myself googling and searching stuff like reincarnation, about chakras, energy fields, aliens even, and stuff like that. So I definitely had those things in me that I wanted to research. I wanted to read stuff about that. So
Thank you so much for that. That sounds amazing. I mean, I have it within my family, herbalism as well. And that's important for me to connect to that side of things. Although I do a lot of work similar to you in the esoteric side of things, I've always really wanted to balance that, or just felt energetically I wanted to really get out there into nature and gardening and working with herbs. So I try and do that. I try and do that a lot in my life. Um, One thing that I wanted to also to ask you was about how did this special relationship with the being that you mostly work with come about? I mean, what were the first initial encounters like? And maybe if you could just
uh,
introduce her to the listeners as well, so they get a sense of her.
yeah, so of course, like how it came to be first was that I wasn't aware of it for many years. And, like I was doing certain, like having that drive to work on myself and finding those or activating those potentials. So for example, one thing was that I got sick. I was getting sick from the food, and for example, we were mostly vegetarian. I would eat like in a canteen, for example, in school meat, but at home we were mostly vegetarian, like most of the time. And but I still was struggling with my health. So that was, for example, an interesting thing. That's an important thing that happened to me was, I was sitting in a living room, and there was that bookshelf with all those, books, and I was feeling the pull suddenly. I was searching for like what is wrong with me, how I can solve this and stuff like that. And so I felt like to pick specific book out from this bookshelf, and then when I went, so I stood up, I picked it up, and then another small booklet fell out, and I was like, I always had very strong intuition. I felt that I was supposed to find that book, not the one that I was being attracted to pick out from
Mm.
bookshelf. So I grabbed the book or booklet. It was really like small and very thin, like it has less than 100 pages, and it was called Natural Diet a life without sickness. And I was like, if they will be talking about meat, I'm stopping reading. So I was reading it, and it was about raw food diet, and so that basically was very important part of like my journey, that I found out about this, because it accelerated definitely healing that I needed, realignment, more of Kundalini activations. Although I think I had some chakra activations even before that, but that definitely accelerated it. And so also, like, I was doing like inner work on myself, as we call it nowadays, for example, shadow work, or limiting beliefs. If I encountered something that I was so I was kind of like very flexible. I never believed that, for example, what I how I'm behaving, that I cannot change it, or that's me. I always knew that it was just something learned. So when I was interacting in some situations that I didn't like, how I experienced it, or how I reacted to situation, I was searching for ways like how I can shift myself so I don't see it that way, or how come I see it this judgmental way, and so on. And then I was exploring myself, especially after some years, or in a specific time frame. It was also like what was coming up was about relationships. And interesting is that I never had really a relationship with the humans, because it just never really resonated with me, what I was seeing around. So that's why I needed to investigate it on myself, or in myself, like searching what really resonates with me, what is the type of love that I want to experience, or what is really like in alignment with my soul. And all these inner shifts that when I had like epiphanies, or even I had some ecstatic experiences randomly happening sometimes when I shift. Then I believe this was very important on that journey, like when I found out, like I had connection with her, I connected with her directly and consciously, and started to have experiences with her. This was the reason why I was able to have immediately very intense and direct experiences. So that's basically how it happened. And to tell about like who she is, like she is basically, I don't know if it if it would be important to say like from what type of race, because maybe some people don't know it, but it's called Yael race. So she is humanoid, very similar to us, but still some different features. For example, she has a blue skin, and larger eyes. That is usually, like what we see many aliens, to have larger eyes. And so she's on a high vibrational level. And for example, when I had experiences with her, it would definitely be triggering even more and faster, like healing coming up. So yeah, like she is from the race that they also work with like humans, these abductions with the grace, for example, in the past, like there were these very negative ideas. I was also reading about them very soon, as I told you about, like when we got internet, I was reading about it. I was interested, but something didn't completely resonated with me, because it was always very dark, presented in a dark way. And I kept myself open to other explanations that would be, giving more reasons for why they have been happening. So, but yeah, like they somehow created hybrid programs, or hybridization, and different races have been created from that, because they basically couldn't reproduce themselves. So, and they lost connection with the God, basically. So they created hybrids, and Yael is the closest genetically to us, but they kind of like evolved through some experiments, and their race, although it's not maybe as old as some other races, but still it had like a long as well evolution already as well themselves. So and they are kind of like better version of ourselves, so that's why it's very much like helping me as well on my personal journey. And so there is the thing, for example, that if listeners don't know, like hybrid children, for example, and they are now as well creating, but with more of consent, these hybrid children on more spiritual level. So this was
can I just
something. Yeah.
interject just a little bit? It's so fascinating what you're sharing. Yeah, so I just wanted just to kind of to interject a little bit here because I know some of the listeners will be very familiar with this kind of territory, but I know some of the listeners that this might be very, very new material, even the sense of connecting to non-physical beings might be a very new experience for people. But as people are listening to this podcast, maybe they can just begin to just feel into these kind of mysterious encounters that maybe they've had in dreams or beings that seem to be kind of not human, as it were. I mean, one of the main guide beings that's come through to me over the years has sometimes said to me quite explicitly that although she appears to me in human form, she's never been a human. She's never incarnated as a human form. So there may be times where people are experiencing beings that are very much kind of connected to the human realm, but have a very strong sense of kind of otherness to them as well. But Yvette has started to create a really intriguing picture of the being that that she works with, and you've talked a little bit about how she appears to you, the color, the nature of the race of beings that she comes from, and also a little bit about the kind of energy experiences you were having when you were younger, the kind of chakra awakenings, and the kind of the books that you were reading. I mean, was it a sort of, how to put it, like was there I'm just intrigued. Were there very specific times in your life where things really started to open up more, where you became more sort of psychically
Yeah,
opened?
definitely.
Can you remember, did you go through that kind of that process, as it were?
Yeah, like I was feeling very strong that this end of the world in 2012 was something important, and of course I never believed it was about end of the world, but something that would happen, some kind of shift. So I was having some experiences also before with the chakras, and I was on a raw food diet already before that, like 2 years before that I started, and. So when 2013 came, I started to have more experiences and acceleration, definitely. For example, that was the first time when I as well encountered the term channeling, and that something like this happens, like channeling other dimensional beings. First one, for example, Cryon. I guess maybe you know him, know that channel, and then also some people channeling archangels and also extraterrestrials and so on. So I started to dive deeper into that, and I felt pulled to start writing a blog. But it was just personal blog, like if you would journal about something, you would be just writing down your ideas. But very soon it started to flip, that I started to channel about things that I wasn't really experiencing, but it was telling me kind of like into the future. And a lot of it also during that time was about, eventually about like twin flame thing, that I also never really experienced or thought that I didn't experience. But funny is like there have been so many experiences that happened that I connected together just much later, So for example, I knew about Sheila existing already in 2013 because someone else was connecting with her and bringing her through artwork. And I connected with her really, like when I realized that I had a connection with her, it was in late 2015. But before that, I, for example, had I think it was in 2013, I had this experience in a dream, very intense. And at the time, I wasn't sure, like if like what we meet in the dream, or like it's not happening just inside of my head. So I had this very profound experience that I met with some being, and I felt amazing love coming from that being, and it felt like a guide, but it had a feminine energy. So, but it was so funny. I perceived the being as a blue, but as a giant. So it was strange, you know. And I was when I had this experience, I was kind of like sitting on the couch, and she was next to me, and I was just like you know like so intense, you know, like I couldn't relax, like because the appreciation of me was so strong that I couldn't kind of like accept it. You know, like it almost like when you have a crush, like when you are a teenager, and then you know your crush comes into the room, so you are like this and you cannot perform anything, you know. So it was something like that, but I never really thought that it was something, you know, like a relationship like humans have with each other. Uh, I thought it was some kind of guide, you know, and it was just that moment that I was receiving, you know, that there is much more love when we connect with the higher vibrations, you know, higher dimensional, you know, either beings or just energies with the source. And funny was that like 2 weeks later, I had exactly the same experience, and I was able to relax, and I didn't turn and look at the being next to me. And I think at that time I was not perceiving her as a giant, but she was her normal size, and I was like able to relax and just lean back, and I felt her next to me, you know, and I just enjoyed. I didn't have the guts to turn and look, you know, at her. So, and this was the first encounter like this that I would say that I felt that was something else, you know, than just dreams with those masks of other humans and stuff like that. But later, when I checked my diaries, you know, with the dreams, I started to remember dreams with her already from teenage years. So she was always there, you know, with me in many different ways. You know, I was connecting with her through songs and stuff like that. And so yeah, like other experiences that I started to have with her were also like once I quit school because I was feeling this strong pull from the spirit to go somewhere. You know, it was some eco village with natural houses, and there were first experiences that I had physical with her. But again, like I wasn't sure like who that was. I thought it was some kind of spirit of the person that who was there connecting with me, or I don't know. I didn't understand what was happening, but later I realized that it was her, and it was exactly the experiences that I started to have next later with her, when I was already realizing I have this connection with her, and also realizing that she can interact with me through my physical reality, not just astral experiences. So, um, so that is how it kind of like, you know, gradually, you know, get to the point when I realized that I was connecting with her. But of course, there are many other details there. So I don't know, maybe we can continue with the questions, and let's see what I can get into to the interview.
No, I'm very curious now about the connection, because you've described the connection as being quite a romantic one, or almost like a kind of, and then I assume that that goes into the realm of kind of the sort of energetic intimacy, and that kind of
Mhm.
that state of giving but also receiving. You describe it very beautifully in that way. I mean, I mean, this might sound like um, a facetious question, a silly question, but it is well-meaning. I mean, have you ever fallen out with her? Have you ever sort of doubted her? Have you ever had those sort of, because in relationships with human beings or beings, there can be that sense of,
Mhm.
you know, do I trust this? Do I trust this being? Do I trust this experience? One of the things that many people are quite skeptical about spiritual things or encounters with spiritual beings is they feel, well, how can you
Mhm.
trust that? How can you even know what,
Yes.
do you know what I mean? And I think it's like and I want to hear what you have to say. I mean, I might have more to say about that, but I'm very curious about
Yeah.
what you have to say about that.
So in a time frame, getting closer to realizing that I was connecting with her, Like, first to answer your question is no. Like, I never doubted her because what I'm going to tell you. But there, actually, when I remember, there have been certain moments when I started to doubt her, but it was when I was in a very dark place, when I had some interaction with a very toxic person, and it made me doubt everything about myself, my connection. Narcissistic type of people can completely like disrupt everything what you believe. So uh, I don't know if I can count it in, but it was really like when I again was able to have more experiences with her and let her energy in, there is absolutely no doubt about like what I feel.
Mm.
So it has to be like when you believe it, it has to be really happening on more levels than, I don't know, just seeing someone in astral in front of you. It's very personal. Like the to the level I am opening up to her, she's opening up to me as well. So I can have some perception of what she's even perceiving or feeling. So it's really bonding, on a chakra level, like when you do with for example, in tantric practices, maybe with your partner. So you know when you are experiencing those kind of things, how you can trust the person, and you wouldn't be even opening up to someone who is toxic, because that would be very destructive as well for you. And so, for example, a few months before I realized that I was connecting with her, I was having again another set of dreams when I would be having. It was again like at the time I didn't know like if what I was dreaming about was somewhere else. I always thought that it was just my dreams. And I was having, I started to have romantic type of dreams, and it was also consequence of me finally moving. In my life forward, and I started to have romantic dreams, and each time it wasn't really that it would be the same person that I would be meeting. It would be sometimes like random, that I wouldn't really put any specific person that I know over. um, and so each time when I would have this dream and I would woke up, I would feel very much in love. And because I didn't want to put too much of meaning into it, like that, yeah, I'm meeting my I don't know, twin flame. I don't actually like this term of twin flame, but it plays some role in the story. So or I would be thinking about like I am having some dates in other dimensions or something like that. So how I worked with those experiences was that each time when I was feeling this deep in love feeling, I would always project it towards myself, because this was also interesting aspect of those dreams, was that I felt like I was meeting myself, and the love that I was projecting towards the being was actually my self-love. So that's why I always turned it to myself, and it was changing me so much that I was surprised at even what it caused. Like I always had, for example, problems with a painful period, and during that time it stopped as well, because I was feeding myself with this romantic type of self-love. And I had like throughout maybe 3 months or so, like several of these kind of experiences, and each time it was more and more intense. And last time, the experience that I had was it was like I felt again like this energy approaching me. It wasn't really that I was seeing anything. It was more like in a void, but it felt like a blue energy, and it was more than before that I would be interacting like with the external being. It was like it merged inside of me, and I woke up and I felt just amazing. And uh, so as I mentioned, like I knew about her already before because someone else was working with her, but eventually disconnected. And there was another person, also artist, who was around that time starting to create her artwork of these beings, and she also knew this specific being, and she like this specific being, I mean Shayla, and she made artwork of her.
Wow.
And it was around the time when I had this experience, and when I saw that picture, I felt such a panic in me. Like immediately I was panicking. I saw other artworks of this artist before, and I was so in love with them. I even had like very short experiences with those beings she portrayed. I felt energies, but when I saw her, I started to panic. I started to avoid. Like I couldn't look at it and go deeper into what it was offering to me. So I was in this state for like 3 months until I was like, okay, I cannot go like this forever. I have to take a courage and look at that picture. And from then, like yeah, you definitely need to have some kind of spiritual courage to go into this kind of experiences with the beings and opening up yourself. So then I started to really feel, like opening up my energy and heart and so on. And still at the time, I didn't know, like I had a connection already before with her. I didn't connect it with it, those other experiences. And so when I was opening up to her, I really was feeling like she was sharing most of the time, not through words with me, but through the feelings inside of me as an empath. I can receive more information through complex feelings. So it felt to me like some kind of like energy of best friends together, best friends forever, kind of like thing. Like she was giving me feeling like when I am in astral and in an unconscious way, like it's like it always pulls us together to be constantly together, like best friends or something like that. And so I was having also this kind of like more of like as well starting to have platonic feelings, but later. So when I started this connection with her through that picture, I also was like spending hours throughout the day on looking at it, and I was having like constant connection with her. And 2 weeks later, I had experience with her when she brought it to a new level. And one friend I met, like he lives in another country, but I met him that day, and he gave me weed. And so I took it, and I like to use it in more of like private settings for meditation. And so I had a weed, and so I was in a different state and very relaxed, and I was feeling really like a lot of some kind of communications. I felt like I was standing in between some kind of square, and there were so many other like people or extraterrestrials, whatever that was. Like there was like many different conversations going through me, and I was just relaxing and observing and enjoying the state. And then suddenly, what happened? She approached me. At the time, I wasn't sure, like, I didn't know that it was her physically there approaching me, but she activated energy in my private areas, and I immediately closed it, because it's just stifled me. And I was like immediately like this, like, what are you doing? I felt her. That it was her because I immediately got that image of her inside of my head as well. And from that, I started to panic because I was like, why she did that? Like, she has to know that I am into women, that I'm not straight. Like, is she playing with me and stuff like that? So definitely I had like a few weeks of madness, a little bit there. And so I really needed to kind of like accept like as well what I am feeling, and I definitely needed assistance. So one thing that I did was also ask this specific artist to create artwork of her specifically for me with a kind of like energy codes, or however you want to call it, with the answers to my questions for her. So she made it, and again, it was again like activating still more and more of this idea of her being interested in me in a romantic way, intimate way, but it was pure, nothing weird about it. And even before that, I was receiving telepathic informations that we already had kids together. So I was like, whoa, 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 that's like too fast, for me. And for example, she told me that those dreams that I had of like few months before that, those romantic kind of like dates, in a way, that it was her as well, and that overwhelmed me as well. So I was speaking with this artist about it, and she recommended me as someone who channels other beings as well. And so I had then sessions with him and speaking with her, and that was very important for me to really ground myself and really because he didn't know anything about the connection. And when you know that you are really speaking with the being that you are connecting with,
Mm.
you can really sense it there. I had also some other session even before that with her through some channel that I would say was fraud, because when I was speaking with her, it felt like I was speaking with complete strangers. So there was this contrast of like knowing what is fake and what is really like talking with her. Because another aspect was there that she before she started to speak through the channel, she always connected with me, and on energetic level she ran through me like this tantric kundalini energy. And so that was also at the same time accelerating my connection with her and experiences and stuff like that. So that was part of like how it's kind of like started.
There's so much there that you're sharing to go into. I mean, I would love to see some of the artwork that you've created, or maybe we could put some links to this the podcast interview for others who might want to have a sort of visual sense of the being that you're describing and the beautiful connection. And I know that for some of the listeners, they might be feeling things like you're talking a lot about expansion and the sort of expansion of love and that sort of connection, and that's probably going to feel really good for people, that people might feel like I would like to experience that more, and it'd be really interesting to hear from you. You know, I have courses on Udemy about how to open up more in terms of psychic awareness, but it's always interesting for me to hear from other people's perspectives as well about just what helps people these days energetically open up more. Maybe you've received guidance from Shayla about how to help others open up, or how to do that in the most in the most skillful way. Because sometimes these days people like to plunge really far into it, and they'll go off and take loads of plant medicine and just
Mm-hmm.
wide open. But then other, you know, esoterically, other teachers like people like Rudolf Steiner used to say that when people's psychic awareness begins to open up, it's incredibly delicate, like kind of little petals of flowers, and you need to really tend it and nourish it in a really mindful and careful way. And we have a culture that people just like to kind of go and kind of just get it and experience it extremely quickly. So it'd be interesting to hear your sort of take upon that, and also just on in the realm that I'm also interested in is just because you were talking about going to see a channel that you felt was very authentic, that could channel your being in a very sort of objective and beautiful way. But then you said you went to another channel who you felt was not able to do that, or was pretending, or was not really channeling, was just kind of
Mm-hmm.
saying whatever came to them. How would you kind of encourage people to really be able to discern the difference in a way? And also, do you really think it's so black and white? This is something that I think about. Sometimes I've been to see mediums in the past, and I felt afterwards, yeah, they're definitely gifted, they've definitely got power, but there may be more sort of shadowy things going on, or sometimes they might be exaggerating
Mm-hmm.
exaggerating how much they can really channel or how much they can really intuit. I mean,
Yeah.
what's your kind of take on these things?
Yes, definitely. I agree with that. That some people, for example, I don't believe, for example, people saying that the way they are channeling is in trance. For example, this person that I had very good experience with, I believe that is like only one person who is really in a trance, because even like I would feel the way he was connecting and doing it through myself. And I can feel also when I am watching some other channels. I don't necessarily always do it. It's always when I want to investigate how they are connecting. In some way, I can kind of like feel in myself what they're feeling when they start going into channeling state.
Mm,
So yeah, like I believe that there are many people who as well exaggerate like how they do it, and they want to make it appear in the way that yes, it's like they are very unconscious. There is like no ego in there of theirs, or they're yeah, like also that trance channeling is better than conscious channeling and stuff like that. And yeah, it's coming definitely from their insecurities, and but I understand they want to, it's also way they can survive, as well, like it's their income, and they are very self-conscious about showing people that they are maybe not as great as they should appear, let's say. But this is the issue in a spiritual community, not just with the channelers, but in general, like people, um, even who are not in service, sometimes they need to appear more like advanced than other people, because of like whatever they feel less about themselves, they need
Mm.
to like approval that they are
Mhm.
really spiritual, there are something, but again, like it goes into like how to be, in my opinion, better channel is always to um, search for authenticity and honesty within yourself.
Mhm.
Like for example, there some people also ask me like when they wanted to open up more into like telepathic communications and stuff like that, how do I know that what I channel is correct? And I
Mm.
say like you cannot really know if it's correct. It's all already based on who you are basically and how you approach it. For me, being truthful is very important. So it's my vibration.
Mhm.
And so this is a belief for me that basically what I attract and information that comes through has to be truthful. It's kind of like my rule. It's like conditions for other beings that or energies that want to communicate through me. This is the rules that you have to follow in a way. Like it has to be truthful and always honest. And also doing that shadow work, connecting with yourself and basically still expanding more. Sometimes I feel that I channel, for example, better when, or it's flowing more when I, for example, cleanse myself more on physical level. So I can sense that as well. Um, but yeah, it's, for example, how I gain as well confidence in my channeling is through experience. First of all, I just had to do it, and allow myself to basically let through anything that would come without judgment. Like I don't own the information or the words. For practice you just have to let it go through and then see like what happens. People as well can feel energies. Of course they can um, see like if they resonate with the words or not. And especially what is helpful to trust my own channeling is when I kind of like am getting things about the person that I don't know, uh, and they are very precise.
Mm.
And so for me in that moment, because I don't like lying and I don't want to also say incorrect information. So
Mhm.
for example, I am conscious while I'm channeling. So for example, I need to constantly work with myself. So I can get in those moments a little bit nervous about the information that is coming through. So it just believes, and I just have to be as well courageous of like maybe potentially channeling completely wrong information and then facing that, okay, I maybe channeled something bad. So it's like I allow myself to be courageous to maybe manifesting something like that, and I will just let it go through. I will say it like what I don't know is true, uh, and then people give me reflections like, yes, this is exactly what happened to me or what I experienced or stuff like that. That's there are things that can be shared during those sessions where you can get back confirmation that what you are giving or saying is really correct. And another confirmation is also like when you are guiding them through something that they want to um, overcome or work through. Sometimes they ask a question in a certain way and answer leads them somewhere else, but after they receive the answer, they know that what I gave them was exactly what they needed and it helped them, resonated with them, and maybe what they expected the answer to be or where it could go wasn't the right way. So their feedback is what gives me, more confidence about that I am, offering good services. Of course, I'm not saying that I can channel like completely everything. I have my limits as well, like some technological stuff, for example, about like alien technology is very difficult for me to translate because we don't have concepts for it, for example, or some other things. I can be limited as well. So but I am always very, very happy when I can shift their energy and really help them in some way that they, even from the energy throughout the session, it lightens them up, or they overcome maybe some hard feelings they had before and they feel calmer or energized more and stuff like that. So
Thank you so much. That's a really rich answer. And what you're saying about humility is one word that definitely comes to mind, that staying humble within the practice and not projecting a sense of that what you're channeling is 100% true and
yeah,
100% correct and you're 100% sure because this comes from spirit. And I think
yeah,
keeping that sense of humble and just that sense of sort of tender uncertainty is a useful thing, to have. But it's very true that what you're saying, that often these days, because there's so many people out there trying to do this stuff to some extent commercially, there is that almost commercial they feel like it's a need to really like push how good they are at certain things. But also I think it also comes a little bit because a lot of people that are more open energetically sensitively within the West at least are often have grown up around profound skepticism. So it's almost like they become more and more sort of entrenched in that identity of, do you know what I mean? Just sort of holding on
mhm,
to these things almost like as a defense over others who are so skeptical about things. But things are changing. I think that we are going through
yes,
an age where people are starting to open up, especially more in the younger generations and things. People really starting to open up more to these things, which is really, really beautiful. Um, you've obviously got so much to share, and there's a lot more we could go into here. But just in terms of time, and it'd be wonderful maybe do a further session, a chat, and interview with you at some point. But one thing we wanted to bring into this podcast was just an opportunity for Yvette to lead some kind of meditative practice. So, because we've done a lot of talking, a lot of words, and really just something to help us come into just a contemplative space. So if Yvette would like to lead us all, everyone who's listening to this podcast on whatever platform, just entering into this space for this short meditative experience as a way, just we'll probably just end the podcast with this experience. So we will put links to Yvette's work under the podcast, so you can check out more about how to connect to her. So that'll be there. But let's just kind of have this towards the end here, just like a practice where we can just begin to, yeah, feel the energy of this together.
yes, yes, definitely. What was very important for me was grounding as well. Guidance that I was receiving even before I started to connect with her. And after this talk, I feel grounding. Some grounding will be important as well for me and maybe for others as well. So I want to share some grounding meditation experience that I had as well before, and I was inspired to do. So we can start with calming down our minds through breath. And of course, either sitting down or lying down, whatever is best for you for meditation. And with each deep breath, slowing down and connecting into center of your being and your body. Gaining awareness of your body. And then also awareness of yourself, who you are as a person. in your soul, not just things that maybe shaped you in this life, but things beyond that, who you feel you are. Feel yourself and bring that feeling deeper into your body, into the awareness of body, and let it merge. Remember this feeling because we will be going back to it as we are grounding still more and more. With next breath, I would like you to expand your awareness into space around you. Feel the room that you are in, the space that you are occupying. Feel the walls, furniture, and air in the room. Now bring awareness again to the feeling of self and your body. And try to connect the feeling of the space around you into that feeling as well. In this way, you should start feeling more and more comfortable as well with the reality that you are occupying. Giving yourself a break from everyday life and just being in these moments that you don't have to hurry anywhere. When you included this awareness of a room, we will now expand our awareness into larger area and land around you. It could be city or village or everywhere you live right now. The streets that you are walking when you go shopping or into park. There is nature around the city that you live in as well. So take that all in through all the experiences that you had living in the city. And now include that feeling again back to yourself and your core. Now we will expand even more and we will connect with Earth as a whole. Whatever word Earth brings to you, whatever you feel when you think of Earth, what do you see? Mountains, hills, beaches, rivers, forests, seas, soil that Earth is made out of is going very deep into the Earth. You can even connect the feeling of holding the earth in your hands and feeling how does it feel, either soil or sand or stones. Now look at the earth from the distance as a whole. How you usually picture the earth. How do you feel about her existence in the space within the solar system? She is existing within the whole universe and space. Locate her in overall space. And as you are deeply connecting with the physical essence of Gaia, realize as well that you are on the earth. You are on the surface of this ball in the space. Bring awareness again back to yourself and feeling yourself on the surface of the earth, imagining lying on the earth and feeling all that soil or all that energy of the earth around you, that you are part of her, like one cell of the whole organism. You are part of that energy. You can stay with this feeling as long as you wish and integrate the feeling inside of you. So next time when you would need reconnection, you can find it more easily. And you can remember the feeling in a other stressful situation that you would be experiencing. And you can bring yourself into center, very grounded center of all of the energies that you are together with Earth. So we can now close this meditation, and you can of course do it on your own for as long as you wish. You know, this was a faster way of going through the experience. But you can meditate on this later as well. So now we can get back to our conversation and into our discussion, opening eyes and moving and coming back.
Yeah, may the conversation on these things continue on. that's all we've got time for, but it'd be lovely to have Yvette on again, our podcast. But I hope everyone listening carries on and has a beautiful day.